Big Brother is back for its 23rd season in what is being heralded as the new era of Big Brother. I'm still gonna wait and see a little bit on that before we start declaring this as the new era, but seeing Travis get picked at last was definitely a step in the right direction. So this new season, they're saying the biggest prize pool ever. We're jumping from $500,000 to $750,000, which in my opinion, for how many people watch the show, how much money this generates for CBS, it just feels a little low to me. The winner should be getting at least $1 million, with all of the other house guests being handsomely compensated for their time. Another thing of this season is going to be a season of extreme risks, is at least what we're being told. We'll have to see how all that plays out. It could just end up being a situation where, like at the end of tonight's episode, Frenchie is offered the option to gamble and get his team 2 weeks safety, but has to risk his HOH to do it. And it just feels like a lose-lose situation to me. He does the contest, loses, and he's all of a sudden not HOH and he's a target. He wins, gets his team safety for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden at the end of that 2 weeks, they're all targets. Just doesn't feel like, the risk reward just isn't there for me. It just feels like both options by playing are just bad. So 16 house guests competing. Let's get into some first impressions. Overall, not bad for the cast. It's still a little too young for my likings. I often enjoy and identify more with the older contestants. I'm almost 40 myself, and when I'm watching Big Brother, I want to watch and see people who are like me, who I can identify with. I don't identify with someone like Travis. I don't identify with someone like Brent. I just don't. And to see, more people like Frenchie and Tiffany would be way better for me, because like those are two house guests that I immediately have a little bit of a connection to just because they're a little bit older. I know a lot of other people are praising this cast for having a lot more diversity, but let's start seeing not just people of different races, but people of different ages too, because I look back on some of the past seasons and like players like Cliff and Chicken George, those are just people that I've identified with. I've really enjoyed watching. Even somebody like Evil Dick, maybe I didn't identify with him, but really enjoyed watching him, and I wish that they would cast more older people. All right, let's go through person by person here. Already mentioned Travis a couple times here. He was our first house guest that we were introduced to, and immediately just not into Travis. He's not my thing. So let's not waste our breath talking about him. Derek F. Straight out of the box seemed quite interesting to me. I know that I've seen online some mixed reactions for him just based off some of the stuff that was said in one of his interviews, but I didn't watch that, so I'm going to base my opinion off of what I saw tonight. He seems very interesting. I like that he's got the connection, the boxing connection through his family, but I did get the sense that he is going to play the game way too hard, and we'll have to see if he can rein that in as we get into it. Frenchie, someone who I already mentioned, I'm just going to have to cheer for him at least a little bit just because he's not in his 20s. Xavier, he felt like pure showmance bait to me. Like 100% showmance bait. Like, did you see him with his shirt off? Just abs everywhere. Like, I think he had abs from below his belt all the way up to his neck. It was just straight abs. I'm not even sure if he had pecs or if it was just abs all the way down. Next up, we have Aza, and I really didn't like how she very much went out of her way to say that she was going to avoid showmances. Feels like a pretty solid recipe to me for her to end up in a showmance. Next up, we have Brittany. I really didn't get much of an impression off of her. Felt like her whole introduction was just karate and autism, and that's to me that's not a personality. To say that I'm defined by one of my hobbies or my job, it just doesn't quite feel right. So I hope we see more and get more out of her as we actually get to meet and learn more about these individuals. Next up was Alyssa. She just rubbed me the wrong way right out of the gate. I couldn't put my finger on it, but like I'd put her in the category with Travis, where just right out of the gate rubbed me the wrong way, and just probably someone I'm not going to be rooting for. Whitney also didn't get much of a read into her in her introductions. Once she started doing that puzzle, though, like right when that group started, I immediately just looked and looked at each of the four and said, "Yep, Whitney is gonna win." Like as soon as she actually started doing the puzzle, so she could be a real competitor in the competitions at least this season. Brent, cool, another 20-something hard body. Next. Christian, also not my cup of tea. Seemed like he was quite quick in our competitions. He absolutely smoked his group in his first competition, and he almost won the second competition, but was a little bit too hasty and somehow managed to go from first all the way to last. Derek X, when I first saw him, I got all excited. I thought, yes, this is going to be our nerd for the season. Then we get to his intro, and it's just him shirtless playing tennis. And I thought, oh, damn it, we're not going to get any nerds this season. Last of the guys is Kyland. And he really just feels like the perfect dating app. Like everything he said, everything he was doing just looked like it was like exactly what you'd put on your fake dating profile to get as many matches as you possibly could. Then Sarah Beth came on, and yes, we are going to have a nerd on the season this year. I will definitely be cheering for her a little bit. I always like the nerds on the show, so Sarah Beth, I will absolutely be rooting for you. And honestly, this last set of four women, they're probably my favorite four of the season so far. Like all four of them. And plus, I'll just have to cheer for Frenchie just a little bit. So next up we have Hannah, and just want to let Hannah know, and just in case it's not clear, Doogie Howser wasn't real. It's like I feel bad telling her, like Doogie Howser, that's a TV show character. And I get the parallel, but the way you were talking about Doogie Howser really made it feel like you thought he was a real dude. Next up, Claire. She won her group and really gave the impression to me of both a super fan and someone who's going to be a real gamer this season. And lastly, we have Tiffany. I'm loving Tiffany so far. Hope that she can do well this season. Like I said earlier, I will absolutely be rooting for everyone who's not in their 20s, everyone who's not just there to show off their abs or get as many Instagram, Twitter, whatever followers as they can. So I already kind of covered this, but we went into the competition straight from each set of four. Frenchie, Whitney, Christian, and Claire were each winners for their group. And from that, we drafted teams for the season. Now, these teams definitely won't go all the way to the end, but this is something that we could see for probably somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks. So it will be a huge factor in the season. So our first team is Team Joker, captained by Frenchie, with Azza, Brittany, and Derek F. I don't mind this team. Probably my second favorite team, I would say. Next up, we have the Aces, and that is Whitney, Brent, Derek X, and Hannah. I do like Hannah and Derek X. Still definitely not on Team Brent, and a little bit on the fence still about Whitney. So that's kind of middle of the road team. Team Kings, which is Christian, Alyssa, Xavier, and Sarah Beth. You know, I do like Sarah Beth, but this is probably my least favorite team. And lastly, we have Team Queens of Claire, Kyland, Tiffany, and Travis. You know, if we can just ignore Travis, this is definitely my favorite team. Claire, Kyland, and Tiffany. Those are three that I will probably be rooting for this season. So I'm probably going to be cheering for Team Queens. The HOH competition was stacking cards or card puzzle. I guess it wasn't really stacking cards, while your three teammates held up the support for the puzzle. Pretty interesting. First place is HOH. Last place will be have not. So you can't just quit after you lose out. You got to keep going to try to keep your team off the slop. Christian, he was way ahead. Looked like he had absolutely had this in the bag till everything fell for him. And it didn't just fall once. It fell twice. It fell 3 times. It fell 4 times. All the way till he landed in a last place. Frenchie ends up winning. So the Jokers will be safe for the week. Queens and Aces second and third, with the Kings in last place. So the big twist for the season is Frenchie is offered up 2 weeks of safety for his team by risking his HOH. He passes, and I think that was the right decision, even though he did win. He did successfully complete the task, you know, as the just let's see if you can do it sort of thing. Just don't think it would have been the right move. You know, you lose, your team's all of a sudden at risk, and you're a target because you've already won 2 competitions. And 2, if you do win, I think that it puts a target on your whole team, because, you know, over the course of 2 weeks, everyone in that house will get a little bit resentful of you and your team for having that safety. All right, that is going to wrap things up for this week. Let me know who you're cheering for. Who did you like and dislike from night 1? And yeah, who's your favorite team from our 4 new teams? So that's going to be it for now. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you later.